Dust drifted like breath across the flat horizon, a slow, colorless tide swallowing the last traces of the wagon's path. The driver flicked the reins once and didn't look back, his shoulders hunched against the wind, as if eager to shed the burden of her presence. She stepped down, her boot sinking slightly into the cracked ground. Dust clung to her torn dress, and behind her came laughter, cruel, echoing, vanishing into dry air as quickly as it came. One voice, sharp as a whip crack, called out, "Ain't much peace out here, sweetheart." Then silence took the land again, stretching wide and pitiless. The ranch sprawled like a scar on the plain. Fences broken, a barn leaning with the years, troughs empty, everything sun-faded to the same weary brown. The wind moved through the fence wires, singing its thin, endless note. Out beyond the main corral, a man worked alone. He wore dust like a second skin, and his hat shadowed his face. The post hole was deep, the hammer steady, his silence more commanding than any shout. When he looked up, she felt the weight of his gaze, not cruel, not kind, just seeing. Then, without a word, he lifted his coat from the fence rail and walked toward her. He didn't speak. He only laid the coat across her shoulders, and for a heartbeat, the wind stopped. Even the dust seemed to hang midair, waiting. She held the coat close, heavy with the scent of sweat, leather, and long days in the sun. Her eyes flicked once toward him, searching for meaning, but he had already turned back to his fence. The sky stretched endless and pale, the kind that bleached hope out of anything too fragile to endure. She heard the creak of rope, the distant beat of a horse shifting its weight, and somewhere far off, thunder rolled like a warning too tired to finish its threat. "Peace," she whispered under her breath. He said in the letter, "I only want peace." The words trembled in the hot air, swallowed by the horizon. What kind of peace lives here? That night, the wind came back, cold this time. The bunkhouse windows rattled. She couldn't sleep. From the small cot they'd given her, she could hear the rhythmic creak of boards as the men outside finished their chores late, the murmuring of horses, the whistle of the wind through the eaves. She turned the coat over in her hands, tracing the seams, the frayed cuffs, the scent of tobacco smoke in the lining. Then the memories began, unbidden, jagged and sharp. Whiskey breath close against her ear, the saloon light spinning in golden haze, the sound of laughter that wasn't friendly, a brooch glinting on a table, a dare, a hand too quick, then shouting, her voice lost in the crush, the clink of handcuffs, the slam of a cell door echoing like judgment. Later, the rain hammering a tin roof, water soaking through as she ran through the night. The brooch left behind, her name burned clean from the register of whoever she used to be. The ranch at night anchored her. The flicker of lantern light through cracks in the barn, the hiss of oil in the lamp, the smell of hay. She watched Jed. She'd heard his name spoken once in passing. Moved with deliberate calm. He checked every latch, tightened every rope. He never looked directly at her. Yet she felt seen, as though his silence offered something steadier than pity. Morning broke gray and heavy. Work began without orders. Everyone simply knew. She carried buckets from the pump, the handle biting her palms raw. She fed chickens that scattered like spilled marbles, cleaned troughs, fetched water. The sun climbed and burned the world into stillness. Every few moments she caught a glimpse of Jed fixing fence posts, wiping sweat from his brow with the back of his arm, movements efficient, unhurried. He glanced once in her direction, but said nothing. Days passed in short, hard stretches. She learned the rhythm of the ranch, the clatter of tin cups before dawn, the rasp of rope through pulleys, the call of ravens that circled the pasture. No one told her she belonged, but no one sent her away. The men's muttering softened from ridicule to indifference, then to something quieter. One afternoon, as she hauled a bucket to the barn, a ranch hand named Cole stopped beside her. His voice carried the edge of suspicion worn dull by curiosity. "You work harder than most who start here," he said, rubbing his jaw. She met his eyes, uncertain if it was compliment or test. "Work's all there is," she replied. He nodded, a small tilt of respect. "Fair enough," he said, and walked on. That was the first conversation that didn't end in laughter. The montage of her days unfolded in small, wordless moments, 5 seconds at a time. Hammer striking post. bucket hitting trough. Her breath rising in the morning chill. Cole passing her a rag without speaking. Jed lifting a saddle with quiet strength. At dusk, the horizon bleeding red, she stood alone by the fence, the wind pushing her hair across her face. She whispered to no one, "Maybe silence is mercy." That night the ranch seemed to listen. The coyotes kept their distance. Even the horses stood still. But peace never holds long in a place where law ends and rumor begins. The next afternoon brought riders from town. 3 men, dust-caked, their laughter carrying ahead of them like smoke. Spurs jingled as they dismounted, eyes hungry for cruelty. The sky darkened, thunder pacing the edges of the hills. One man tipped his hat mockingly. "Didn't figure they'd let a thief wash their dishes," he drawled. Another spat near her boots. The sound was louder than it should have been. She tried to keep her head down, to keep her breath steady, but one insult landed heavier than the rest. A name she hadn't heard since before the cell, spoken with relish and venom. The ground tilted, her vision blurred. Then came a single word, sharp as a gunshot. "Enough!" Jed's voice cut through everything. Wind, laughter, thunder. The riders turned. He stood with his hammer in hand, not raised, just there, a symbol of work and strength. His eyes were calm, cold as river stone. "Leave," he said, his second and final word. No threat, no need for more. The silence that followed was absolute. The men shifted, uncertain, the weight of their own noise suddenly shameful. One by one, they turned their horses and rode off, spurs clinking, laughter gone. She stood motionless, dust rising around her like smoke. Her throat tightened. Tears came, mingling with the dirt on her face. Jed looked at her once, nodded slightly, then walked away. The hammer found the fence post again. The sound of each strike echoed into the distance, anchoring her to something solid. That evening, the sky cracked open and rain poured down, breaking the long drought. The earth drank greedily, turning mud soft underfoot. She ran for the barn, coat forgotten, hair plastered to her face. Inside, the smell of wet hay and horses filled the air. Jed was there already, hanging his tools, water streaming from his hat. Without hesitation, he took the same coat, the one he'd given her before, and held it out. "Stay as long as you like," he said. His words were simple, unadorned, but something inside him steadied her, as though he'd offered more than shelter. She took the coat with both hands. "I think I will," she said softly, and for the first time since stepping off the wagon, she smiled, not from joy but from recognition of something close to peace, fragile but real.